My name's Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Hello, my name is Cynthia Jennings, and I'm your councilwoman if you're a resident of the city of Hartford. And I'd like to just talk to you a little bit about what's going on with some of the issues that I've been addressing at City Council and how I see my role at City Council and some of the things that I've accomplished. I'll start with the fact that I've served as your councilwoman since 2012, and I've been on council for about 4 years, and I'm up for re-election. I will be running on Working Families Party, and we will be running on Row C. So I'm asking everyone to make sure that on November 3rd, if I don't mention it again, make sure that on November 3rd, you go out to vote and you vote for those you know will represent you well. Okay, so my background is I'm a civil rights attorney. And I've been a civil rights attorney for many years. I do employment discrimination, disability discrimination, and I bring my legal skills to the council. The city council's responsibility under the charter is to write legislation or laws for the residents of the city of Hartford that would be in the best interest of the residents and the businesses that support our city. One of the things that I've done as a council member is I've actually provided legislation to make sure that our police wear body cameras so that we can have a safe police force as well as a safe community. And we would have to, and they're in the process now of negotiating with the union as to how those cameras will be brought on to generally our patrol staff. Another thing that I've done while I was on council was I've chaired the Parks, Public Works, and Environment Committee. And environmentally, some of the things that I've done in the past is I've served as one of the co-founders of the Connecticut Coalition for Environmental Justice. And I've also served as their board chairperson for many years under the leadership of Dr. Mark Mitchell, who was a former director of health for the city of Hartford. We've done a lot to clean up the air and the water, and particularly to remove mercury from the landfill. I co-founded the Connecticut Coalition for Environmental Justice, which is a statewide environmental organization, and we have actually protected the drinking water of more than 2 million people in the state of Connecticut through the Clean Water Act enforcement and coming up with legislation locally to support the Environmental Protection Agency's Clean Water Act. We've also reduced the incidence of childhood asthma from 43% to 25%. And that was done essentially by making sure that environmentally risky facilities in the city of Hartford, such as the municipal, trash incinerator in the south end, the landfill in the north end, the gas engines that get fired up if we don't generate enough trash to generate electrical energy for the grid. So there are many, we have many recycling centers and waste facilities in Hartford. Hartford was designated an environmental justice city by the US EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency. And it's an environmental justice city because we have more environmentally risky facilities than all the surrounding towns. And we generally take on the waste for the region. We have a sewage sludge incinerator where if you flush your toilet in Avon, it ends up in Hartford. And we have many facilities that the residents may or may not be aware of, but every one of those facilities needs to be monitored, and we need to make sure that they are properly operated because they can have a serious impact on the health of our residents. And one of the impacts that has been one of the most severe impacts is the amount of childhood asthma we have primarily among Black and Latino children. We have an astronomical rate of asthma in Hartford, and we've worked hard to reduce that by monitoring the environmentally risky facilities and keeping the emissions down, making sure that the standards are met. And I will tell anyone, if you ever you go by and you smell the landfill, you call the Department of Environmental Protection immediately. You smell the sewage treatment plant, you call environmental protection immediately. There is not supposed to be any odors emanating from any of these plants. And at one point, we I would drive by, and if I called and called the engineer for the day at the Department of Environmental and Energy Protection, the landfill operator, if it was the landfill that had emissions and smells and odors, they would be fined $25,000 a day until they clean up those odors. I was also part of the cleaning up of the landfill implementation of a landfill gas recovery system. I don't know if many years ago you remember how you would drive past the landfill in North Hartford. You'd be on 91 North and you would see a big mountain on your right. That would be the landfill. And that was generating a lot of destructive odors. A lot of methane gas was coming out of the landfill and it was being pumped into our communities. With the assistance of Larry Charles at One Chain and all the One Chain staff, as well as the North Hartford Seniors in Action under Fannie Arnhem at the time, now under Gladys Ellis, and the Survivors on Sunset Street, which was the closest street to the landfill. And it was Survivors on Sunset was initiated by Helen Nixon. And we all worked together. So, it became a real issue when Sunset Street, the closest street to the landfill, every African-American man had died except two, and the two that were left had cancer. And that sent off a tremendous fear in the hearts of everyone who lived in North Hartford near that landfill that could smell that landfill. It also resulted in us being escalating to the point where we actually had the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia, come to Connecticut and come to Hartford and go door to door with us to do what's called a health scoping examination to determine who was sick and who was well, and whether or not that landfill had any adverse impact on the health of the residents, because we found so many cancer clusters in North Hartford. And hopefully, not hopefully, we now know that a lot of those issues have been resolved with the landfill and the emissions. We had someone who was on the bus with me who was riding. We had medical students that would go with us. Dr. Mitchell, Mark Mitchell, would get medical students from the local colleges, and he took a group out. And one of the students actually gave me his contact lens. When he started out, he had there were 17 out of 23 people that had eye irritation from, they thought, which was the landfill. And at the end of the trip, Dr. Mitchell asked, has anyone had any problems with their eyes or any itching or any other problems? And he said, yes, he had. And he handed me a contact lens that had a hole in it. And that, Dr. Mitchell said, was not the landfill. He suspected the salt pile, and they ended up having the salt pile that was that big, huge pile of salt that's in North Hartford, having it covered so that no more of the salt would blow out into the air as fugitive dust and cause problems to people's health as well. So every problem was not the landfill. And right now the landfill has been closed and capped and is under a 30-year monitoring by the former landfill operators until the 30 years is up, and until some of the emissions have calmed down and there are no more negative emissions or possibility of harmful emissions coming from that landfill. So we've done a lot in that area. Dr. Mark Mitchell was also one of the other co-founders of the Connecticut Coalition for Environmental Justice, and he has done a lot with the environment. While I was on council, most recently, we had an issue that had to do with amalgam, which is mercury, and mercury in fillings in your teeth is not considered to be a neurotoxin. But before they put it in your mouth, there are certain restrictions that dentists must follow, and after they take it out of your mouth, they cannot flush it down in the regular sewage system. It has to be handled in a certain way. However, there's a law in Connecticut, a state law that says that all individuals should have the choice of having amalgam fillings, amalgam, which is mercury. People call them silver fillings, but it's not silver, it's mercury. Mercury is a neurotoxin, neuro meaning nerve, toxin meaning poison. So if you put amalgam fillings in your mouth, you are likely to you will be putting in something that's a nerve poison. And the claim is that, or there's no proof that it causes certain damage. But there is proof that mercury is a poison. And the Connecticut Coalition for Environmental Justice, under the leadership of Dr. Mark Mitchell, and now under the leadership of Sharon Lewis, who is now the executive director, we have managed to have mercury removed from every hospital in the entire state. You cannot go to a hospital and have a mercury cuff, blood pressure cuff on your arm, because the mercury we're not using mercury anymore. And you cannot buy a mercury thermometer, because what happens is once you dispose of the thermometers or dispose of the equipment, the medical equipment, it goes into the landfill, and then it's incinerated and it's burned and it vaporizes, and it creates another neurotoxin, for a nerve poison that gets into the air. So now we have no more, thanks to the Connecticut Coalition for Environmental Justice, no more mercury in any hospital in Connecticut, and therefore we've removed it essentially from the landfill. We've also removed mercury, I'm sorry, not just mercury, we've also worked a lot with the school buses and the regular buses and trucks that come into our city. You'll see a lot more hybrid buses that come into the city that don't put off the diesel fumes that contain carcinogens. So if you're sitting next to a diesel truck and you're breathing that black smoke has a carcinogen, which is a cancer-causing agent that you are breathing into your body. So we have fought to have new school buses or buses that were retrofitted so that our children are not exposed to these diesel fumes, and our community is not as much either. And we've also fought to have the diesel buses come into the city. A lot of people are now buying hybrid cars. I have a hybrid car. Dr. Mitchell has a hybrid car. These cars and these vehicles that burn a lot or create many less poisonous fumes than other vehicles. So Connecticut Coalition for Environmental Justice has been a real asset to the city of Hartford and actually to the state of Connecticut in monitoring poisonous emissions that come from the landfills and from these trash incinerators and the sewage sludge incinerators. And we also have done a lot to make sure that the incident of asthma and the days lost from school by children with asthma and the medical treatment that people have to face because of asthma, we're working hard to make sure that these diseases are no longer a problem for our children. Last night at the public hearing, or I will say Monday night at the public hearing in Hartford, we had Krishna Rain introduce the first asthma house that's going to be built by my sister's place. It's a 2-family house, I believe, that's going to be built in North Hartford. And it's going to be a house that doesn't have carpets, that has a HEPA filtration system that keeps the air clean, so that the young people that have severe problems with asthma that live in this house will have a clean environment and clean air to breathe. This is a pilot program for the country, and I've been talking to Krish a number of years about this. I am so happy to see that it's just about to come to fruition. They have the property, I believe it's on East Street, and they're going to build the house, and it's going to be built so that the children that are in the house will have filtered air and have a clean place to live. And the parents and the community members will be exposed to far less toxins. I know when you come into Stan McCauley's office, you have to leave your shoes at the door. And when you have children with asthma, you generally have to leave your shoes at the door. You can't walk these poisons into the house. You can't take your coat, your outerwear off and bring it into the house. They've set up in the asthma house cubby holes and things where you can leave your outer clothing so that you're not exposing the children in the house to the toxins that you brought in when you came in from the outside. So there are a number of things that parents need to know that we have done in terms of education and information, working with the environmental organizations such as ACOTI. ACOTI is now, and this is another major issue that we're working with in the environmental committee. It has to do with the fact that there's a municipal solid waste incinerator in the South End. And now it's outlived its usefulness. Now it's going to cost more to maintain it than it has in the past. and it's going to still be it's going to emit higher amounts of fumes. So what we want to do is take the municipal solid waste incinerator. It's actually going to be built, and it probably will be built in Hartford because that's where the current one is. It's unlikely that it'll be built somewhere else in the state, although it could. I can't imagine any community opening their doors and saying, you can build a trash incinerator in our community. No, Hartford has already been sited, so it's going to be easier to resite it right in the same location. We've had the Department of the Department of Environmental and Energy actually deal with that. Okay, so we will take a break and come back. I'd like to thank you, Stan McCauley, for having this opportunity for those of us who are running for office to come in and talk about some of the issues that we've addressed and some of the things that we've done. My name is Cynthia Jennings. I'm running for City Council in the City of Hartford. I'm asking for your vote on November 3rd. You will find Cynthia Jennings on row C. We're asking that you vote row C. It's working families. And I want you to remember that we want all our families working. And with that, I'd like to say that one of the things that has been my priority since I've been on council, in addition to the environmental issues, is the fact that Hartford has double-digit unemployment. And that means that more people in Hartford are not working than anywhere else in the state. We have approximately 11 or 12% unemployment, and that doesn't count the people that are structurally unemployed. We could go to 30 to 40% unemployment based on the people that are no longer collecting unemployment or have never ever worked. So we want to talk about how we're going to get our city back on track, how we're going to boost our economy, and how we're going to get our city moving again. And the first and most important thing is that we reduce the violence. How can we reduce the violence? Violence in our city is steeped in drug trafficking and drug sales and people using drug industries as a way of making money. Our children should be given many more opportunities than that. One of the things that I did while I was on council for the past 4 years is that I worked with Mayor Segarra, and we pulled together a plan whereby every department would have access to a young person, 1 or 2 young people working in the department through the summer youth program and assigned to a specific department. The agreement had to be that it was not their job to make copies and clean the office or bring the coffee. Each department had to have an orientation for them and have a specific job where they could learn a specific skill. I spoke with all of the students. There were about 30 students that we had this was a pilot program. And the first 30 students were told, do not, first of all, clean up your social media pages. Take those sexy pictures off Instagram. Get rid of those Facebook pages that are going to be looked at by employers. Your employer, when you go for a job, the quickest way to do a job interview is go and Google you or get you on Facebook and find out what you've been doing. So rule number 1, clean up the Facebook pages. Rule number 2 was do not touch those city computers unless you were doing city work. Because I'm a civil rights attorney, and I can tell you the only people I could never get their jobs back for were the people that actually went out there and used city computers for things, or not even city computers, state computers, their company computers, for something other than work. And I told people, if your friend wants to send you a joke, tell them to write it down and hand it to you. And never ever give out your PIN number or your personal identification number for other people to get into your system, because that's whatever happens in that system under your PIN is your responsibility. So now we had no problems, no issues, or no complaints from any of the departments of any students doing any wrongdoing on the computers. And when at the post interview, after they came together, we gave them all citations for their completion in this first pilot program in the country where young people were trained to run their cities. And the first thing I asked those 30 students was, I said, how many people think they can run the departments that you worked in? And there were about 26 who raised their hands. They think they could run the department. And I said, well, how many people think they can run the city? 6 of the students actually raised their hands and said they really believed they could run this city. So to the kids, it's no big deal to run a city or run a department. These kids are very brilliant. They're very smart. And they knew that it was their job to go and identify internal contact people, so that every time jobs come up, that person, they would stay in touch with that person for the rest of their life until they got a city job. And they also, we talked to them about, now that you've worked in the finance department, what do you think you have to take in school in order to actually direct that department? And a lot of those students were very smart about changing the way they looked at their courses and changing the courses that they took and taking their courses more seriously, because they realized that they really were going to have to know this stuff in order to get a job. So that program was extremely successful. We had 0 absenteeism in that entire program. And those students all came dressed for the job and came prepared to do the job. And they spoke very well of their experiences there. The other thing that I did while I was on council was I established the Hartford Hires Task Force, which was chaired by Aloy Toppin, who was in procurement. And the Hartford Hires Task Force brought together unions, Hartford businesses, Hartford residents, and individuals who are interested or involved in the employment process. The purpose being to look at all of the City of Hartford ordinances and find out why our residents are not getting hired in any substantial numbers. Even the City of Hartford only has 16% Hartford residents working for it. So the question is, who's advertising these jobs? How are Hartford residents being selected? And what can we do to repair this problem? I had a town hall meeting at City Hall where over 300 people participated, some of them extremely vocal about they're not being hired, even at Public Works. And, even Public Works seems to be a department where that's where most African American men and some women actually work, because those are the only jobs it seems like they can get into in the city. So we have to take a look and meet with department heads, especially the director of personnel, to find out why not only is there a lack of residents, but there's definitely a lack of women, and that includes especially the police department. So we're dealing with departments in the city that don't have enough women, when most of the city is consisting of single women with children. Over 50% of our children live in poverty. We have to put the mothers to work. We have to put the fathers to work so they can keep their families together. We have to reduce the violence by allowing people to have job opportunities beyond selling drugs in the street. So after the town hall meeting, it was decided that what we need to do is have a database that's established primarily for Hartford residents, only for Hartford residents to register for work. And also any job, last week I put a resolution through that says that if you have anything to do with the City of Hartford, if you are a union and you interact and get money from the city, if you are a business and you receive monies from the city, if you are the city itself or the Board of Education or receive taxpayer monies from this city, then it's your duty and responsibility to register every one of your job openings on the database. And this is called the jobsforhartford.com. So any Hartford resident that's viewing this, or anyone who sees that, knows someone in Hartford who needs a job, you need to tell them to go to jobsforhartford.com and actually register. I went to the senior center, North Hartford Senior Center, and I handed out some cards. I don't know if you can see these cards, but maybe I'll have Stan McCauley hone in on the card. This is a jobsforhartford.com card, and they're business cards, and I handed them out to people who were at the senior center. And I tried to talk some of them into, I said, listen, we have a stadium coming. You can get a job handing out tickets or in the concession areas, and you can go back to work if you so desire. And then we talked about, if you have grandchildren eating grits at your table and they're not working, or children, you need to give them one of these cards. So one woman took 4 cards, and she took them and handed them to her family. And there were other people who did the same thing. So I had to go to the senior center to get signatures in order to run again, because I had to have signatures in order to be allowed to run for office again. And when I went to get my signatures, one of the women said, I already signed your petition. Somebody brought it in this morning first thing, which a friend of mine's daughters took the petition and they went crazy. They just went out and started getting the signatures for me. And when I talked to the woman, she said, Miss, I'm so glad you came back. She couldn't remember my name, but she said, I took those 4 cards you gave me, those 4 business cards you gave me that said Jobs for Hartford. And she said, all 4 of my grandchildren got a job from those cards. I took her name down. I said, I can't believe that. I am so happy that people are actually getting employment. There are certified nurse aide positions on there. There were jobs for customer service from the hotels. There were jobs for throughout the health network. I mean, and now the city of Hartford has started posting all their jobs. I spoke with the director of personnel yesterday, and he said that they are now posting their jobs, 100% of their jobs, on the Jobs for Hartford website. So if you want to know whether or not there's a job available, just go to jobsforhartford.com and get on the website and register if you're a Hartford resident. If you're not a Hartford resident, no, you cannot register there, because these jobs are for Hartford residents that have double-digit unemployment and have been cut out of the job opportunities. And this is a way that we're getting back into the business of putting our residents to work. Once people get a job, it's almost guaranteed they're going to buy a car, and the car taxes minimum, you're going to get $500 per person each from car taxes. So when people go to work, they're paying taxes to the city. This is an income for the city. When they go to work, we have a housing program that had $1.5 million worth of housing. Hartford Hospital had a program where they were supporting housing, very low income housing, but home ownership. And I believe they had 65 houses that they had actually built and sold to Hartford residents. And these houses, it meant that, and these were people that made $60,000 a year and less. So you don't have to make a lot of money to get into a home ownership program. But if you have 100 people that own a home and each one of them pay $5,000, that's $500,000 in income that the city gets. It doesn't make sense for us not to support and promote home ownership. And that's what we do. So I want our people to go to work. I want them to register for jobsforhartford.com. I want them to make sure that we're making sure that the employers put their jobs on the website. This week there were 71 jobs on jobsforhartford.com. 71. Our people can do some of those jobs. Get your family members, and their professional jobs as well. We have lots of people in this city who have professional jobs or have skills to have professional jobs and have not been hired. And we're also asking that the Board of Education post their jobs and that every nonprofit organization post their jobs. And I will say something. I was out in the community last week at CME Church, and there was an AIDS conference. And the AIDS conference, they talked about a drug called PrEP. It's a drug that partners of HIV-infected people receive so that they won't become HIV positive. Do you realize? And I've done a resolution now for this. the people, African Americans and Latinos, are not being equitably dispensed that drug PrEP that would keep them from becoming HIV positive. So it became a real issue, but it turned into a piece of legislation that I think it was Pastor McGuire, who was helping host that at CME. He was very happy with the proposed legislation. I told him, come down to City Hall and make sure that you voice your opinion. And also, come down, vote on November 3rd, vote for the people that you know support your issues. All right, if there's something that someone else does, I know that Nyesha McCauley is an educator and she's running for office as well. You can pick people from any one of the lines, okay? It doesn't have to be row A only, row B only, or row C only. But we ask you to vote for those you know, and my name is Cynthia Jennings. I'm on row C. I'm looking for your vote to go back to City Council so that I can continue doing what I do. We thank you so much for all the concern, and I'm asking people to turn on to Channel 96, watch the council meetings, but more importantly, come out for the public hearings and voice your opinion. My number is 860-757-9572. That's 860-757-9572. You will get my executive assistant, Russell Hicks. He will tell you when the meetings are, when the public hearings are. If you have an issue you want on a committee agenda so that we can get it before council, he will tell you what to do with that as well. So thank you so much. God bless you. And I hope to see you on November 3rd. Vote row C for Cynthia Jennings. And I will certainly continue to serve you as well as I can. Thank you.